February has arrived, which means it's the season of love. However, you never know if that person you're meeting has other intentions. Therefore, let's sit back and listen to what some of our friends had to go through on tonight's thrilling episode of Scary Stories. By the way, if you have a story that you'd like to submit, then make sure to do so by emailing me at tcfnarrations@gmail.com. Just make sure it hasn't been sent or submitted to someone else. That way we can keep the stories on this channel exclusive. Now, let's begin. Number 1. Why is it always the crazies? There's a lot of backstory that I have to present to you before I can get to the meat and potatoes of what it is I want to talk to all of you about, so please be patient, because I promise it's going to be worth it. Cell phones were just starting to become popular amongst us students, and I can still recount all the popular rich kids having the newest iPhone. I too longed for the attention of the cool crowd, but I was that shy art girl who just sat alone drawing in her sketchbook. Still, I was nice to those I met, though looking back, I think I could have been a little more assertive. Here's what I mean. There was a coffee shop that, since closed by the way, I would head to after school to work on my art projects. The next few hours would then consist of cups of coffee, music playing on my iPhone, and a bunch of eraser shavings scattered across the wooden table. While I was minding my own business one afternoon, a pretty friendly guy walked over to me and he complimented my art. He couldn't have been much older than me. I had just turned 17, and he looked no older than 20. He was tall and skinny, and he had slicked back comb, black hair, and glasses. Anyways, he introduced himself as Tony. Your artwork, it really reminds me of my late girlfriend. She used to love making these sorts of things. Hearing that almost brought a tear to my eye, so I gave him my condolences. Would it be okay if I sat here with you? He questioned. I said why not, and we ended up talking for about 20 minutes. At the end of it, we exchanged phone numbers and Facebook friend requests, and I honestly thought I just met and made a pretty cool friend. It started that way. Then things went silent for almost 2 years. No kidding. It's like one day he was there, and the next he was not, because I hadn't received any text messages, nor had I seen him upload to Facebook for some time, which, by the way, it started posting some, let's just say, questionable material. Things about how he wanted certain people, air quotations, gone. That's the most PG way I can explain it. I tried calling him to see if he was okay, but I got no response. Therefore, I looked toward his friend list, and I just so happened to see that I did have a mutual friend. Her name is Amber, and we had met in junior high school. However, she went to a different school after junior high ended. Nonetheless, I messaged her and she told me that Tony had been arrested after he had tried robbing a convenience store with a pistol. I guess that ended up explaining his sudden leave of absence. I wanted to know more about Tony. I know it might seem dumb, but in a way I was glad I dug up more information. As for the whole girlfriend thing, that was a lie. It turned out that both Tony and Amber had been dating for a while, but they had a pretty bad breakup after he had gotten wasted one night and he had come at her with a kitchen knife. That in itself was a whole show, according to Amber. Cops were even called. So this late girlfriend thing was most likely for me to feel sorry for him so that I would give him a chance. At least that's what I thought. She was very much alive. I wanted to know why Amber was still Facebook friends with Tony, and she claimed she rarely used it, so it didn't really bother her. Whatever, to each their own, I guess. Fast forward to 2010, January, and I now have a boyfriend. One afternoon, we were sitting at the same beloved coffee shop, and I got a text from an unknown number.
Hey, sweetie, do you remember who I am? It's been so long.
Not recognizing the number, I ignore it, but hours later I get some pretty creepy messages. Things along the lines of,
Why haven't you responded to me? It's Tony. Don't tell me you have a boyfriend. Who was that guy that was holding your hand at the coffee shop? Do I have to kill him or something? What's your problem?
Reading the killing part really set something off inside of me, so I messaged him back, telling him he shouldn't joke about things such as that. He then proceeded to call me all the names you can imagine in the book. But that wasn't the worst part. He told me he was going to get revenge for me breaking his heart, and me apparently cheating on him. Yes, as you can already begin to understand, this Tony guy had a lot of issues going for him. I mean, not once was it stated that we were boyfriend and girlfriend, so I wasn't sure how he had come to that conclusion. Either way, I blocked his number, and I removed him as a friend from Facebook, with a block also coming a short time later. A few more weeks passed, and this is when the nightmare would come to its climax. It's a couple of days before Valentine's Day, and I was returning home after staying after school working on a group project. Of course, my parents hadn't come home. My mom works for a nearby hospital, and my dad is a security guard for a US bank. Normally, I was left here until around 8 p.m., and that's when my dad usually arrived, sometimes with food. At around 7:15 p.m., my dad texted me, saying he was on the way with some Panda Express, my personal favorite. He also mentioned he had bought some groceries, and he was going to need my help bringing them into the house. I told him no problem. Just text or call me once you're outside, so I can go and help him. In the meantime, I went ahead and stepped into the shower, seeing as I had such a long day. Now, before continuing, it is important to mention that this week we were experiencing above average temperatures. With our air conditioning being out for the count, this meant I relied on leaving my window open in my room. I didn't really think too much of it, since we were starting to get a nice breeze. So I shower, and about 20 minutes later, I step out to dry my hair with the towel. This was when I started to hear footsteps walking around my room. I should mention both the restroom and my room are connected, which meant I could easily walk out to see who it was. Before checking, however, I look at my phone, and I notice something that instantly sent chills. Where were the text messages from Dad? Not even a voicemail. I knew my dad would have no business walking around my room without even texting me to help him with the groceries. So then, who was inside my home? It sure wasn't Mom. I get the courage to take a peek through the crack of the door, and that's when I see him. I instantly recognize the black hair and glasses. However, he now seemed to have a huge scar on his right cheek. It was Tony, with a knife in his hand. Before I could muster the courage to shout at his presence, my phone started to ring. My dumb self had left the ringer on. Suddenly, his lifeless stare is turned toward me, and there is now a huge grin over his face. I scram to lock the door, as he begins to pound on it with his huge, powerful fists.
Open the door. I promise, I just want to talk with you.
I held back tears as I answered my dad.
Hey, honey, I'm outside. Can you come help me now?
Before he could get another word out, I screamed at the top of my lungs. He knew something was wrong. I now hear footsteps racing toward my room, as I start hearing Tony's panicked footsteps and labored breathing. What occurred seconds later was something my dad recounted to me, since I only heard it as I was still locked inside the bathroom. When he finally gets into my room, Tony all of a sudden lunges toward my dad with a knife. My dad, still in security guard uniform and with his taser, manages to subdue Tony. This was when I heard Tony fall, and I hear the sound of the taser go off. "Stay down, or you're going to make it worse for yourself," my dad ordered Tony, with one of the most intimidating tones I'd ever heard him speak. I finally unlocked the bathroom door, and I'm finally able to see things for myself. There on the ground was Tony, still trying to fight back. My dad ended up putting him into a chokehold, and Tony eventually settled down. Police were called while my dad had him held in the bathroom, and he was taken into the back of a police car. After what seemed like hours of questioning, we were able to clear our names once I showed police all the disturbing messages Tony had sent. Rightfully so, he was arrested, and I've never seen or heard from Tony again. Hey there, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. Before we continue, I want to take this opportunity to thank my channel members, Robbie, Bew, and Kim. If you'd like to help support what I do, then check out the channel memberships option. It's right next to where it says subscribe. Thank you. Now let's continue. Number 2. Valentine's Day Shopping Madness. This is a really old story. It happened back around 2004 when I was in college. I was doing some shopping at my local Vaughn's supermarket, picking up groceries for the week. As I walked down the various aisles of produce and admired all the colorful boxes and cans, my mom ended up calling me.
Hey, Mom. What's up?
I answered while reading the back of one of the milk cartons.
Have you gotten anything for Grandma? You know, for Valentine's Day?
I looked at the screen of my cheap little cell phone, and I was able to notice that I'd completely forgotten the holiday. After I'd broken up with my girlfriend a few months ago, where I found out she cheated on me with one of the popular college football players, the last thing I was interested was with anything to do with love. Most importantly, Valentine's Day.
No, I haven't. But I'm at Vaughn's. I'll pick her up some flowers, and I'll grab her some chocolates, and a teddy bear to go along with it.
I wasn't that heartless. I loved my grandma, and I'm really happy my mom had reminded me, since she unfortunately passed just a couple of months later. Anyways, once I was done grabbing my groceries, I walked over to the huge display where all the roses and various other assortments of goodies were. It's here I stumbled into my ex-girlfriend, Jessica. I didn't really know how to respond to her presence, since I hadn't spoken to her in months, and we weren't exactly on the best terms. I ignored her as I picked out some roses, and it's while doing this she begins to curse at me, which causes a scene. One of the employees walked over and wanted to know if everything was okay, and I told them I was picking out flowers for my grandma. Jessica all about lost it, claiming the flowers were for another girl. So, you already moved on from me, huh? Figures you would. I was trying so hard to hold in my anger. After all, there was so much I could have said to her, but I didn't. I chose to walk away with my pride, as I can recall the music over the speaker switch to We Are the Champions by Queen. How fitting. That part's not even a joke. I'm serious. I remember it so well because of how savage I had handled the situation. Anyways, I saw Jessica exiting the Vaughn's full of anger. It's now I walked over to the cash register and I took a few minutes to talk to the cashier. She was an older woman named Grace, and she was friends with my grandma. They both went to high school together too. We talked for about 5 minutes, seeing as the store was pretty empty, and it's while in our conversation I hear the familiar chime of the Vaughn's automated doors opening. Before I know it, I see Jessica. She was with the football player I mentioned. For the lols and memes, we're going to call him Chad. There he is, my ex. Go teach him a lesson, Jessica instructed this guy, as I sort of just stood there like, are you for real? Now, I'm pretty average height and build. I was and still am more or less about 6 foot 180 pounds, but this guy was easily 6'4", 260, 270 pounds of pure muscle and strength. I'll admit, I was trying to act tough, but I was sort of scared. I just didn't want to show it. The guy goes for a punch, and I manage to step back as a few employees start to get involved. This Chad guy, I'm not even joking you, pulls out a switchblade from his sweater and he tells me he was going to slash my face. He then more or less threatens the employees to stay out of it or he was going to come after them too. Naturally, we're freaking out big time as he begins to push and shove displays, but luckily one of the employees called over a security guard from the bank that's right next to the Vaughn's. The security guard's presence alone sent Chad and Jessica running like a pair of scared cats. Now, you would think that was the end of this frightening and bizarre adventure, and normally when you hear about these sorts of things, that is it. But my story isn't like the others. You see, the store manager called the local police department, and 2 officers came to take our statement, although it didn't take much convincing for them to realize jerk with a knife isn't going to get away. They did advise the store to keep a lookout for him, since of course the dumb Vaughn's had cheap, terrible security cameras with potato quality. There weren't many details they could get. It also didn't help that they had no idea where he lived, so it's not like I could have pointed them to him. Also, the police told me they could help me begin the process of getting a restraining order against the two, but I told them I was fine. Oh yeah, before I ended up going home, there was the fact one of my car tires was slashed. Surely that wasn't by pure accident. All of this evidence would end up biting Chad and Jessica in the rear end. A few weeks passed, and one of my college friends and I were catching up. For some reason, the topic of Chad popped up, and my buddies sort of just laughed.
Wait. So you didn't hear about Chad? Nah, but I did tell you the dude came at me with a knife, right? For real? Dude, that's crazy. But that's not it. Then what's up with Chad? The dude's in jail right now. Oh yeah? For what? You didn't hear? He tried robbing a 7-Eleven, but the owner got the upper hand and managed to chase him out. But that's not before Chad fired a round at the cashier. Luckily, the cashier is okay.
That wasn't anything I'd heard about in the news, so my buddy emailed me a news article, and sure enough, there was his name and his face. Super creepy. By the way, I haven't heard from Jessica, nor have I caught up to see what Chad's up to. As far as I know, the two have broken up, but I could care less to see or know what they're doing. I now live across the country, and I'm married to my beautiful wife Nicole, and I have 2 teenage girls. They're actually the ones who told me to send this story to you, since they're huge fans of the Creepy Fox. Number 3. Damien's arrival. I'm in my early 30s. I'm happily married and I have 2 amazing boys. But life wasn't always about fun and games. By the time I've told my story, it's my hope all of you out there have learned from my experiences. No matter how good things might seem to be, you should always do your research. Let me take you back to the year 2011 to a younger, 23-year-old college girl, that being myself. I was going through a lot during this time frame, and I often spent my evenings locked inside my room, sitting on the computer. How I remember using video games as an escape from the madness that was college. What was really affecting me was my partner who had seemingly just left me for some other girl, because apparently I wasn't good enough. That really hurt my self-esteem, so I turned to my internet friends to help me. They sure did help a lot, but this sort of reassurance that I could talk to anybody online opened me up to some pretty messed up individuals. Allow me to introduce to you Damien. Act 1. I had met him one day while playing Black Ops Zombies with some randoms. Seeing as he had a microphone and nobody else was talking, I plugged mine in. We quickly hit it off, and we became fast friends after sharing some laughs. How I can recall playing every single night, whether it be multiplayer or zombies, Damien was becoming one of my closest pals. Soon we ended up exchanging Skype, and we even added each other on Facebook. Nothing really seemed out of the ordinary with Damien, just a guy around my age who seemed to enjoy posting pictures of his drawings and taking selfies of himself, sort of like me. A few months went by, and our friendship was going strong. He was actually playing over Minecraft when he told me he wanted me to be his girlfriend. Being dumb and naive, I said yes, but I never really took it too seriously. This would be the beginning of Act 2 of Damien's personality change. He started to get very pushy with certain details. For one, he would question why I would be so late to our online video game sessions, which happened because I had gotten a job at Chipotle, something I clearly mentioned. I tried to ignore it, but still it was in the back of my mind. Since we had been official, at least according to Damien, I naturally wanted to do a video chat, but every time this came up, it would tell me his webcam wasn't working, or that his phone didn't have a video option. These are all huge alarm bells, but one in particular would shed some light on this mystery. A pretty creepy one. That leads us into Act 3. I was doing a research project for my art class. Funny enough, this was on Valentines Day, as I still recall going through the box Damien had sent me through the mail, which had chocolate, roses, a card, and a teddy bear. After I had opened it, I was searching for random pictures of drawings, since I needed inspiration for my project. I also had Damien on Skype with me. Now I forget what we were talking about, but suddenly I went silent when on my screen was a picture of Damien.
Damien? Do you have a deviant art account?
No joke. It's like all the air was taken out of Damien. He went silent as I clicked on and opened it in a new tab option. It ended up taking me to a DeviantArt account of somebody named Andy. What happens next is me scrolling through his posts. All of them were of the drawings Damien had posted to his Facebook, with a few of the pictures that were scattered of selfies of this Andy guy. Naturally, I was confused as I had started questioning, who is Andy? Before I could get an answer, however, Damien hangs up the call, and I then spend the next 20 minutes trying to get in touch with him. I now started to put things together. Damien and Andy were two different people. So then, who was I speaking to? And who sent these Valentine's Day gifts? I get my answer when Damien calls me later that night. He was weeping and crying, acting all apologetic, saying that he was too scared to show his face to me because of what I was going to think. I didn't care about that, since I was happy with his kindness. But now that this happened, there is no way things were going to be the same. Here's the deal. He turned it all on me, and he started to make me look like the bad guy, saying I would never give him a chance because I was pretty. I was furious, and in the end he told me he was going to end it all if I didn't accept him. This guy really needed help, and I advised him to talk to a counselor or a responsible adult, as this was starting to get pretty scary. Fast forward, a year later, Act 4 of our Damien friend. As hard as it was for me to move on from Damien, I was now a few months from graduating college. I'd recalled I was at my job at Chipotle. I was cleaning some of the tables when a heavy-set 40-ish-year-old man walked over to me.
Julia, is that really you? Wow, I didn't realize how beautiful you were in person.
Sorry, but do I know you? The guy introduced himself as Damien. And you want to know the creepiest part? He went down on one knee and he proposed. Everyone inside the Chipotle just looked over, and I was super creeped out by him. My manager had noticed, and first thing she did was tell the guy he needed to leave. Thank goodness she could tell something was wrong. I start to make my way to the back room, but that's not before he grabs my arm and pulls me close.
I drove 10 hours just to see you. You're going to come back home with me.
One of my co-workers, Luke, who is a fellow classmate and just so happens to be on the wrestling team, jumped over the counter, and along with a customer were able to get this guy away from me. The cops eventually got there, but Damien had driven away. Luckily, the customer had taken a picture of both Damien and his license plate. Officers find him staying at a nearby Motel 6. I later learned this part, but after questioning him, he finally admits he was stalking me for months, and he learned so many details: where I lived, where I worked, school, etc. It just so happened that day was the one he was going to show up to my work and propose. He admitted that if I didn't say yes, he was going to show up to my home later that night and take me with him by force. They ended up finding duct tape, rope, and a large knife in the back of his van. Number 4. Hearts and Nightmares. Happy Valentine's Day. Something I read every single year when logging onto social media. Yes, happy indeed. Happy to know I no longer have to deal with some of the most frightening and bizarre conversations or fear for my life. For you see, it wasn't too long ago I was in a relationship with who I thought was the love of my life, my princess, someone I could trust and spend the rest of my life with. Okay, maybe I'm over-exaggerating a little bit. Looking back on it, I clearly am. But back then, that's all I could think of. While most of my friends were in a relationship, I was left behind to fend for myself in the great unknown of early adulthood, that being college. That was until I met her. Now, I'm not going to mention her actual name since I'm not that much of a jerk, so we're going to give her a made-up one. Let's see. Let's call her Christine. Christine was a girl I'd met in my science class. She was pretty. She had long, glistening blonde hair, blue eyes as blue as the sky above, and some glasses. Imagine your typical cute, nerdy girl that guys always thought about. I didn't really think of her that way when we first met. I, being the dude with a low self-esteem, I already knew there would be no way she would give me a chance. It started off with just us working on group projects, since we so happened to sit next to one another. However, the more we ended up talking, the more I started to open up to Christine, and try as I did, I had fallen head over heels. It all came to a boiling point a few days before Valentine's, when my friends were able to convince me to ask her out on a date. Valentine's Day arrives, and I muster the courage to get the words out. She was pretty shy when I mentioned it, and I already knew she was going to say no. But to my surprise, she had said yes. Before we knew it, we were boyfriend and girlfriend, and things took off like a scene out of a storybook. But in our time together, things started to become twisted and dark. You see, Christine also had self-esteem issues, which I had just learned myself. But some things went a little too far. Anytime she would see me talking to a girl, she would get angry. And I'm not talking about just, "Hey, what's the deal?" She would literally shout, and she would tell me that if I left her, she was going to kill me. I usually laughed on the inside, thinking this was just her way of being protective of the person she loved, but I would be so wrong. Usually some flowers or a trip to the nail salon would calm her nerves, for the most part. There was one time where she was over at my house, and my cousin arrived unexpectedly. She hadn't seen me in so many years, so she greeted me with a warm hug and a kiss on the cheek. Christine all about lost it. She grabbed a pair of scissors, and she was inches away from slamming them into my cousin. I remember having to hold Christine back, and I had to explain to her that she was just family. Imagine my surprise when my cousin just laughed, and she told me that she was a keeper. Later that night, Christine texted me, and she apologized for the way she acted up with my cousin. I told her this over-jealousy needed to stop, as it was getting unhealthy. She agreed, and she promised she would do better. Things then settled for about 3 months, but that was until one day. I'd been in between classes, and I was checking my notifications on my phone. That's when I happened to see a message from one of my classmates named Jamie. I'll summarize the message as best as I can.
Hey, so, your girlfriend? I think we need to talk about her. I was sitting with my friends, and we were studying outside the bookstore, minding our own business, and she walked over to us. That's where she proceeded to wave a pocket knife in my face. Anyway, she told me that I needed to stop talking and studying with you after class, or she was going to show up to my house and kill me.
Attached to the message was a picture of an envelope that was put into her volleyball locker. It simply had a picture of Jamie from her Facebook, with her face crossed out in red ink, and the message that said, "Soon." After some back and forth, Jamie told me she was contacting the campus police. She did, and they did an investigation, but Christine was so manipulative and such a good actor, she more or less got a slap on the wrist. That wasn't all she got, however. As for me, I finally had it. I was tired of being innocent doing normal things with classmates such as studying. No longer did I want to be controlled anytime we went out together. This was for the very first time I would try contacting her parents in our almost 5-month relationship. They were some of the kindest, sweetest individuals I'd ever talked to. I couldn't believe their daughter could act this way, but I later learned that she was two-faced. Anyways, I asked them for advice, and they told me they did find it weird that Christine started to snap back at them, something she never used to do. She was very irritable at times, but she claimed she was okay in the relationship. After giving them proof, as well as even showing them some of our messages, they told me they would have a good talk with her. The next day, Christine messages me, and she was furious.
Why did you tell my parents about the things I did? That should have just been between you and me. How could you turn behind my back like that?
This opened up an opportunity for me to tell her in person that this needed to end. I made the drive over to her place, and then we spent the next 15 minutes arguing and talking about her behavior. By the end of the conversation, we broke up, and this is where something truly bizarre takes place. You would think that she would be crying, but no. Instead, she started laughing. Not the sort of laugh you get as a response from a joke. No, instead, it was like a maniac. "I'm not letting you leave that easily," she said with a creepy tone. While I had my back turned to her, heading toward the front door, I hear her charging behind me. I look towards her direction, and I can see her with one of her large kitchen knives and a smile that read, "You're going to pay for that." I freaked out as I reach for the door handle, and I jump out onto the front lawn, booking it to the driveway, where my car sat idle. I reach for my car keys in my pocket, and I press the unlock button. Once I jump into the driver's seat, she begins pounding at the window. Me, being in a panic, hands shaking with fear, drops the key in between the passenger and driver's seat. For about 20 seconds, I struggled to grab it, while she's screaming and telling me I would be sorry when she got her hands on me. Thankfully, my nightmare would end, however, when I hear the familiar muffled voice of her dad. "Honey, what are you doing?" Her dad shouted as both himself and her mother were just returning from getting groceries. What happens next is Christine dropping the knife and then heading back into the house. They were confused, but by this point I had enough. I mean, who were the parents going to believe? Obviously not me. However, it seemed that luck was on my side, and they just so happened to tell me that they believed me when I told them she came at me with a knife. Respectfully, I advised them I would no longer be in contact with her daughter, and just like that, things were finally done with. It's like there was a flip of a switch. A day went by. Nothing. A week, then a month. No more signs or messages from Christine. I actually did get a bit worried, so I contacted her parents. They told me Christine was fine, and she was actually starting to date someone else. Well, I guess that was fast. I should point out that after the breakup, I no longer saw her at school, nor did any of my classmates or friends. I learned it was because she dropped out to go to a community college instead. Very suspicious, but I never looked more into it. By the way, it did take me a couple of years to recover, but thankfully I'm now married. It's now been almost 10 years, and with Valentine's Day approaching, I reflect back on this time in my life, a time when my heart was living in a nightmare and cage. Number 5. Chased by Secret Admirer. The story happened to both my friend and I. I've gone ahead and written it up on behalf of both of us. My friend, who we will call Alexa, was performing at a coffee shop on Valentine's Day back in 2017. Now, for just some quick context, the coffee shop is in a medium-sized shopping center made up of various mom-and-pop shops. The only notable restaurant or store name you would find was the McDonald's. The shopping center was also right next to a park, and right behind that park are some woods. Anyways, I had arrived pretty early so that I was able to get a good spot. I knew this was going to be a full house, seeing as there was going to be many local artists performing. Sure enough, when I had pulled up into the shopping center, most of the parking spots had already been filled. Let me tell you, they weren't all going to the McDonald's, although I'm pretty sure they appreciated the extra customers. Fast forward to after the show, I was hanging out with my friend, and some of the people who had watched my friend perform came up to get pictures, as well as autographs. It was so neat to think, just a short year ago, Alexa was so shy. Getting her in front of any crowd would send her into a panicked frenzy. How I was so proud that she finally got the attention she so rightfully deserved. At one point, we were starting to put some of her things in the back of her Volkswagen Beetle. That's when we noticed a man walked over to both Alexa and I. I recognized him. He was there watching the show along with me, just a few seats over. He's about late 30s, short, around 5'10", 230 to 250 pounds. He wore large sunglasses, a torn-up white t-shirt, and jeans. His hair was long and messy, and he had a neatly trimmed goatee. I'd wondered where he had went, since he left almost immediately after my friend had gotten off the stage.
These are for you. I thought you did an absolutely incredible job up there. By the way, sorry if this is so sudden, but do you have a boyfriend? If not, perhaps you would like to go out with me and get some dinner?
Well, he was straight to the point, I'll give him that. Now, maybe because it was Valentine's Day, he thought he would try his luck. He then hands Alexa a bouquet of roses. My friend was very flattered, and bless her heart, she's such a sweetheart. She had to kindly tell him that she was seeing someone. Instantly, this man's friendly and kind nature switched to one of absolute anger.
So, I guess that's how you treat your new fans, huh? Why is it every time I meet a pretty girl, they always have a boyfriend?
She apologized, and me being the overly protective friend that I am, I told him he needed to relax. He then rips the bouquet of roses out of my friend's hand, and then he pushes me.
Why don't you stay out of this? Wait, you're the boyfriend? Nah, I highly doubt it. You don't seem man enough to be with someone like her.
Honestly, I was this close to punching him, but instead we walked back to the coffee shop as she began to cry. Some of the other people in attendance stared this creep down as he sort of just walked off. Now, that in itself was pretty creepy, but that's nothing compared to what happened a short time later. Fast forward about an hour, we had gone to that same McDonald's that's in the shopping center to get a late night dinner. After, we walked over to the park as I tried to cheer my friend up with my comedy routine I was practicing. I was, and still do, comedy stand-up alongside my main job. Nonetheless, the park was pretty empty. The only people we had seen were a couple that sat at the outskirts. They were drinking some coffee with their 2 German shepherds lying next to them. That couple is going to play a part, so don't forget that I mentioned them. My friend and I walked over to the woods because there is a pond that usually has some ducks. It was late in the evening, but we were hoping we might be able to see some ducklings. They had hatched not too long ago. Spoiler alert, we found nothing. Disappointed, we started to make our way out of this wooded area, and that was when we were able to hear somebody whispering, along with footsteps. My friend and I are caught off guard moments later as 3 guys armed with knives come out from hiding. One of them was a familiar face. It was the guy from the coffee shop. Looks like he had backup too. What happens next is they begin to form a circle and they try to block our way out. Fight or flight kicked in, and there was no way I was about to take 3 guys head on that were armed with knives. Both my friend and I book it as these 3 then begin to chase us with purpose. This chase doesn't last too long because we managed to get the attention of the couple from earlier, the ones with the German shepherds. However, by the time we reached them, the 3 creeps who had chased us were nowhere to be seen. That's so weird. We saw them following you. We thought maybe they were some of your friends, one of them relayed to Alexa and I. That would explain the footsteps we ended up hearing. Anyways, that was pretty much the end of that creepy encounter. I know it was stupid we didn't tell the police, but karma wasn't going to let things settle. A few weeks later, I was watching the news and they were showcasing the results of a police chase. The man's picture was shown, and to my absolute surprise, it was the same guy from the performance night on Valentine's Day. I took a picture of the TV and then I texted Alexa. In conclusion, we both agreed it was the same man and we haven't seen him around the city nor near the coffee shop since. As for the 2 accomplices, we don't really remember how they look like, mainly because of the poor lighting in the park that night. Number 6. Valentine's Day Robbery. When most people describe a creepy Valentine story, they usually will go on about a creepy ex-boyfriend or an ex-girlfriend, or even sometimes a stalker. I'm not really sure where this one fits, because I surely don't know this person. Why don't I just go ahead and tell you what happened? For a quick introduction, I'm female, 21 years old, and I work at a bakery where we make everything you can think of. Birthday and wedding cakes, cupcakes, cookies, brownies, chocolates, you name it. Over the course of 2 weeks, our business really picked up. Those 2 weeks being right before Valentine's. It was usually orders for chocolate, and sometimes we had customers who requested we make a boatload of cakes. I truly loved this time, because it was when I would get the most hours. So, the evening before Valentine's Day, it was just myself and another baker named Cody, and we were 20 or so minutes from closing. While I was organizing some of the displays, I ended up hearing the front door opening. I turned my attention to the customer who entered and I advised him we would be closing soon. He completely ignored me, however, and he started to act really suspicious. I don't know, but not replying to a friendly hello was one thing. Constantly keeping his hands in his sweater was another. Let me explain. The way he had his hands in his sweater made it look like he had some sort of weapon. It was something I mentioned to Cody, and we both sort of just nervously laughed it off. Well, let me know if you need any help, sir, I had told this man, who for the past 2 or 3 minutes was just walking around the store. Fast forward to not too long after I'd talked to him. I was still talking with Cody. I had my back turned against the cash register, and Cody was in front of me. Suddenly, Cody goes numb, and he points behind me. I turn around, and I'm faced with a pistol.
Hand over all the money you have in the cash register,
the man commanded in a disgruntled voice. My face went pale, and I started to shake as he started to become more and more aggressive.
You heard me. Hand over all the money you guys have, or it's going to end badly for you two.
Cody and I do exactly as he said, handing over about $500 from the cash register. This wasn't enough, however, as he now demanded to know if we had a safe. We did, but too bad for him we didn't know the combination for the safe, as only the owner knew that. In frustration, and I think because even he was starting to panic, he storms out of the bakery. Cody hits the alarm, and I go to secure the front door. By the time officers got there, the armed robber was nowhere in sight. Thankfully, we had caught him on camera, and officers were able to find and arrest him no more than a week later. Before we get to the final story, I just wanted to go ahead and give you all a quick reminder. If you're ever looking for extra content, whether it be art, previews, or sneak peeks, then make sure to follow me over on my Instagram, @TheCreepyFoxOfficial. Thanks, I'll see you all there. But for now, let's get on to our last entry. Number 7. Police are your best friends. I don't know why this happened. Seriously, one day everything is fine. Next thing I know, I'm dealing with a secret stalker. What I'm talking about was around 2010, before Valentine's Day. Out of the blue, I received a message on Facebook. Curious to see who was bugging me, I went ahead and opened it, and I was met with a surprise.
Do you love me?
I clicked on the profile just to see who it was, and it was completely empty. No friends, barely a description, only a single post that said, "I love Haley," with a picture of me from my yearbook for senior year. By the way, my name is Haley. I should have just ignored the message, but I wanted to know if this was some sort of joke.
Okay, for real. Who is this? And what do you want?
The person responded almost immediately.
I'm your secret admirer. Don't you remember who I am?
There is then a back and forth conversation as I try to get more details. Eventually, I am able to determine that whoever this wasn't going to budge.
Could I visit you tomorrow? I've got so many gifts I'd love to give to you.
Seriously, who is this? You don't even know where I live.
The stranger responds 5 minutes later with complete details. My address, full name, and even worse, a picture of my house. Well, at least from what I could tell. The image was dark, most likely because it was taken in the evening. I went ahead and downloaded the picture out of curiosity, and I turned the contrast and the brightness up. I was shocked to find that it was my house. It had the same Christmas lights that we had been too lazy to take down. Anyways, I was adjusting the image, and I ended up receiving another one. This one was a bit more clear. It appeared to be taken outside my bedroom window, and in the image was me, sitting on my bed, painting my nails. Okay, now this was really starting to get creepy. I went ahead and called my closest friends, but they all claimed that none of them would go as far as to sneak around my home and take pictures in the night. I was now left hopeless. Who was I supposed to tell? My mom and dad? What were they going to do? Tell this person and knock it off? After all, if they knew where I lived, along with my personal information, what's stopping them from visiting? This left me with only one other option: tell my parents regardless. To my surprise, they actually did believe me, and we went down to the local police department to present my evidence. They ended up telling my parents and I that there wasn't really much they could do, but they did offer to patrol my neighborhood more frequently. I guess this was still back in the day when things like this were very unheard of. Disappointed, we started to make our way out the door. However, before leaving, one of the officers I talked to walked over to us, and he handed over his personal number. He then told us that if we saw any suspicious activity or persons, we were to call him. Fast forward a few months later, Valentine's Day had come and gone, and there was no signs of this mysterious Facebook account showing up to my home. No longer were they bugging me with information or even pictures. I was now starting to think that this was a prank from one of my friends, and my stress level started to relax, though looking back, I should have still been on high alert. One evening, I was home alone with my dachshund, and we had been laying in my bed watching a movie. Out of nowhere, my dog jumps off of the bed, and she heads into the living room, where she started to bark like crazy. Seeing as I was alone, I genuinely got freaked out. Therefore, I ended up grabbing the only sort of self-defense tool I could find near me, which was a broom. I then start to make my way toward my dog. This was when I was able to hear the front door handle being messed with. I knew it wasn't my parents returning, as my dog never barks at them. Plus, they had just left. There's no way they were going to return that fast. With my adrenaline pumping and heart racing, I am suddenly driven into panic when the doorbell starts to ring. I'm then able to catch the faint noise of footsteps walking off my front porch. That was it for me. I called the police officer who had given me his number, and he told me he would head over. In the meantime, he told me to call the local police department as well. I do. I grab my dog, and then I lock ourselves in my bedroom. As I waited, trying to calm myself from fainting of pure fear, I stayed on the line with the officer friend of mine. He showed up before the police department, and he said that it was safe to walk outside.
I'm outside your home. Can you open the door for me?
I got up, but as I walk over to let him in, I hear his phone fall, and what sounds like a struggle ensues. I open the front door, and to my surprise, the officer is fighting with a man, and I can also see there's a large knife on the ground that's lying next to him.
Stay back! Lock the door!
The officer instructed, as he tries to get a hold of this possible intruder. Less than a minute later, the police department arrives, and they're able to help take control of the situation. I was left crying, and I was in shock as my officer friend told me that this guy suddenly jumped at him from the darkness with a knife. Anyways, I was questioned for the next 15 or so minutes, and by the end of it, they told me they were going to keep in touch. It wasn't until a few weeks later that I found out the man who tried to break into my home that night was connected with the Facebook account. He ended up confessing to the whole thing. 10 years later, I often think of that night, and I still wonder how in the world he had gotten my information. That's why if I can send a message to everyone, I will tell you this. Please, be careful with what you post. It's very easy for someone to find out where you live. Remember, this was back in 2010. You would really have to go out of your way to look somebody up. Nowadays, it seems incredibly easy. Hey friends, thanks for watching today's episode. As you were able to tell, it was a bit different. Did you hear it? That's right, there's music now. I'm going to send a very special thank you to Coag Music, who created these tracks for content creators such as myself. Admittedly, I've kind of been afraid to use music in my videos, so please tell me in the comments section what you thought of it. Maybe we can make this a regular thing. Anyways, I hope you liked the background footage I filmed. This was the remainder of what I got while I was in Alaska, which, by the way, make sure to watch the previous video. It's there I took you all on an adventure while telling your scary stories. Now, if you'd like to help me with filming and going to these cool places to get footage for all of you, then please consider either checking out my channel memberships or checking the merch that's down below.
Hey everybody, it's me once again. Right now we are in downtown Anchorage. A trip throughout Anchorage, showing you around. It's pretty busy for it being a January 11 minus below zero. It's pretty busy right now, as you can probably tell with all the cars. But we're going to cross the street right now, since we do have the way to go. Follow me. You guys have seen some of my older videos. You might recognize this park. They don't have it right now, but back a couple years ago, they had a bunch of ice sculptures here, as you can see right now. There's a bunch of nothing. It's just nothing but white and snow. But we have the sun, which up here it warms up absolutely nothing. Babe Soul's right now walking about. You probably can't hear him, but the only one crazy enough to be out here in the cold. But I do it for you guys because you know what? We're staying warm and gonna see what else we can find, but I'll talk to all of you soon.
Anyways, that's going to be it for today. I'll see you all next time with another edition of Scary Stories. This has been the Creepy Fox, and until then, farewell.